Well, Tony has been acting somewhat erratically since we heard about and we reported on this on the last program also, the negotiations between Warner Brothers, his network, and the WWE. He's been, as Mama Cornette used to say, in some cases, he's protesting too much. And in other cases, he's just looking like he's potentially been overindulging in his medication.
Well, after the Ring of Honor Final Battle show, Tony did a media scrum, his favorite thing in the world, where he gets to get softball questions and give non-answers. And after the wrestlers left, it was all Mr. Khan. But
wait a minute, can I tell you without even having heard any of this? I'm sure everything was just great. It was just all great, right? Everything's great. We're all great.
I have not heard or seen any of this either because it was Ring of Honor. I didn't pay attention. But I have this here, and Jace Nakarado put together notes so we have an idea of what to look for, kind of. Tony rambles a lot. It's hard to transcribe this.
But he said that's kind of what we're trying to do here is we're trying to listen to a man having a breakdown in front of our very ears and trying to ascertain how long it's going to be before they put him in one of those long sleeve jackets and tie it around the back.
Well, with that said, we're going to do our best to break this down and make it make some sense, but let's go to Tony Khan, and I believe the first topic will be about Warner Brothers Discovery and who and what they're talking to.
Well, it's been tremendous catching up with you guys with all the great stars from the amazing show tonight. A lot of great things happening in pro wrestling, so I can take some of your questions here while we're together.
Tony, first of all, great show.
Thank you, Stu.
It doesn't count when somebody else says it. It doesn't count when somebody else says it. I'm already making a mental note of how many times Tony says great.
You're counting the greats? I mean, he said it a couple of times, right?
He's a 2. Let's see where he goes with this.
All right.
Regarding Warner Brothers Discovery, what they plan to do in the pro wrestling world. Involves, of course, AEW, Ring of Honor, and maybe another company or two as well. Just give me your thoughts on the relationship. Can you give us any type of insight as to what, discussions are looking like now as far as AEW, Ring of Honor, and Warner Brothers Discovery?
Ring of Honor.
Normally it's the answers I don't understand at Tony Scrums, but in this case now the questions I'm fucking oblivious to.
Well, it was a long way to get to where we've gotten, which will be Tony explaining what's going on at Warner Brothers Discovery. Important to note, it came out that CW were interested in Ring of Honor. Tony wasn't interested in giving a non-Warner Brothers Discovery entity Ring of Honor and a loyalty to the company.
Never show loyalty to a major corporation.
Unless you're a fool, but let's go to this.
Honor, we haven't had recently as many, but we've had really good conversations about AEW. Even in recent days, I've had really good talks with Warner Brothers Discovery. We've been with them for several years. It's a really exciting time for AEW. We were the #1 show on cable on Wednesday in really what are considered both of the key demographics in TV, which are 18 to 49 and 25 to 54. So it was a great week for AEW. Oh. I think we've been putting out some of the best shows we've ever done. Right now, we're on this incredible run. Tonight was a great episode of Rampage. In addition to the
4, there's 4. Wait a minute. Now it's starting to pick up a little bit. Do we need some kind of alarm or a great buzzer or something to hold on here a second? How about this? Every time he says great, I'll ding and you count.
What is that? I'm not counting. What do you mean counting?
Well, I got a ding.
I'm running the production over here. I got to keep count?
Well, goddamn, we should hire more people to take care of Tony.
To be counters? Tony's counters?
I'll see if I can do both, but, this is a fucking hard job. It's like the guy that's on the mute button on the bleeper on the Dynamite show.
One of the problems is, how are you supposed to believe anything Tony says when we've been watching these scrums for years now and everything's always great? Never, we're going through a rough time. Everything is always, we're on a string of the When has he not said we're on a string of great shows?
Well, I don't mind him even being positive, but he could be positive with different words, and he could acknowledge when something else goes sideways. But anyway, go ahead. Let's get back to Tony. I got my thing here now. I got my dinger in place.
Great wrestling here on ROH Final Battle. The last few episodes of Collision have been tremendous. I think some of the best in the history of that show. And also Dynamite has been on a great roll in recent weeks. I think there's so many great things happening in AEW. So it was great to come in and have the number one rating and be the number one show on cable, which we've done so many times. We've performed incredibly well for Warner Brothers Discovery. And, you know, we're very, very, very strong relationship. I think with media rights and all the things coming up, everyone has to do their due diligence. It's just part of the TV business. But I think where we stand in a position for AEW to have a huge growth here in 2024. There's a lot of really exciting things happening that I know Warner Brothers is really excited about, that we've talked about.
Yeah, they were excited about Roads to the Top Season 2. They were excited about a lot of things. Is this what they're telling them? Hey, are you guys talking to WWE? Oh, we're just doing our due diligence. Don't worry. Just keep doing your little show.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing is whether they're telling him that is one thing, but whether he's believing it is another. Because these people don't tell the truth when there's tens of millions of dollars on the line.
Advance for All In just being a massive success as we're approaching a $5 million gate for a show that is 8.5 months away. And,
you'll lose a lot more than that before then.
So far ahead of where we were. We didn't put the tickets on sale last year until spring. And now getting on sale ahead of the holiday season. I mean, it's been a huge success. That's going to be tremendous. And one of the biggest wrestling shows in the history of the world, following up on the biggest wrestling show in the history of the world.
Well, you can take that money off the 2024 book set if you're selling all those tickets in 2023. Let's go back to this.
Just months ago. We've done great show after great show. It's been a great year for us. We started out with some great wrestling to start the year, great matches, and then we went to Revolution in San Francisco and blew it out. And, of course, Ring of Honor, I think all three of the major Ring of Honor events have been tremendous this year, including tonight, which was one of my favorite shows of the year, along with Supercard and Death Before Dishonor. I think the Ring of Honor shows have been excellent, but in particular, focusing on the Warner Brothers Discovery relationship that you asked about, we've just gone out and crushed it time after time. And this has been a great year for us. And the really All In is the biggest thing we've ever done. And I think it's one of the biggest things anybody's ever done in wrestling. But you have to also look at all the other huge events we've had recently, month after month. You know, All In was a great show, but really since Collision started, I think we've been able to do so much with 5 hours of television. So this was a big year for us with Warner Brothers Discovery. They came to us and asked us to go from doing 3 hours of TV a week on TBS and TNT, expanded it to 5 hours. And that's
you had Punk.
Very, very successful. Collision did a great audience this past weekend. It's been up the last couple of weeks. And also the shows have been as good as ever. Really strong shows. I was really proud, in particular, the last few weeks.
Let me stop it here real quick. Everyone else is wrong.
God.
Everyone else is wrong. Everything is as good as ever. The shows are the best they've ever been. The matches are the best they've ever been. All In is one of the greatest things anyone's ever done. But we didn't look at all the other great things that he's done. You brought up at the top, is he protesting too much? I mean, when you constantly have to list your credentials to a simple question like what's going on with the network.
And over and over, and some of it most of it doesn't pertain to the question asked, and it's just a verbal stream of I'm talking myself into this while I'm trying to talk you into it too. It's almost I mean, even if everything is great, there's no if everything was fucking perfect, there's no reason for that many words in that answer, is there?
No. What's going on with you in the network? There has to be some way to answer that without going on a 5-minute filibuster session.
Continental Classic, I think, has been something really special. So it's a great relationship, and it's going very, very well for us. And I think part of the TV business for both sides is going to be doing their due diligence. And that's just a part of sports and television, really. And being a part of the NFL and the Premier League, you know, I've seen that process play out with certainly different TV networks looking at different sports. And the sports themselves, looking at different TV networks. We've been a part of this multiple times in the NFL. I'm part of the NFL's fan engagement and major events committee. So I sit in a select group of people in the NFL looking at our different fan metrics, looking at how we're engaged with the fans digitally and in real time, and also planning.
Yeah, you guys are doing a great job, the AEW social media team. You're the person who should be consulting anyone about how to keep things going digitally. They reference Jay Briscoe.
Well, in all fairness now, Tony's got a lot going on at the gorilla position, what with wrestlers getting into fights and him getting scared for his life, that he's still tweeting at the same time with the other hand.
I will say, I've heard from multiple people there who say that Tony's at Gorilla on Twitter. That he's at Gorilla looking at instant fan reaction because it's what he lives for. He's obsessed with the reaction on Twitter, on social media, on message boards.
Well, because remember the last time he was a booker, he only had 2 other guys reading his e-Fed paperwork to really give him feedback. So now all these people can tell him what's going on all at the same time.
And they all said he was good. And he's acting like he's doing a great job here. Not like the TV's awful, the ratings keep going down, you're losing people going to the shows, your product is as cold as it's ever been, all your stars are hurt or chased away. Instead, everything's great. Everything's great. Not me. You can't. That doesn't count. Let's go back to Tony Khan.
Planning major events and looking at those trends. And I've been able to take a lot of the things I've learned in the world of professional sports, working in the 2 biggest sports leagues in the world and being around some of the biggest rights fees in the history of sporting, with the Premier League and in particular the NFL, which is the biggest media superpower in the entire planet and is running hotter and hotter every year and defying gravity. And so for what?
Let me stop it here. This is part of the problem. He convinced himself.
He's getting awful defensive, isn't he, about all of important people that he hobnobs with.
The problem is, this is the problem going back to the beginning of AEW. He believed that he understood the television rights scene and that if he created a wrestling show, he'd be able to double or triple the rights within a few years because of just producing the numbers that AEW is producing right now. He's banking on that. So he's acting like he's some kind of expert in this stuff. And
I don't know. I think from someone who spoke to him, he thought that he was going to whip Vince. He didn't think they were going to be producing these numbers. He thought they were going to be producing big numbers. Like I said, he talks like it was a foregone conclusion.
He thinks he can book. He doesn't understand that he's terrible at it, that the people around him who pat him on the back all think he's terrible at it. And that the people who don't come out right out and say it, maybe they're in California, are doing that because they want to kind of push him to do what they want him to do. So let's go back to Tony Khan.
We're doing here and my experiences in the TV business, we stand to be in a really good position going into 2024. And Ring of Honor is a different company than AEW, but it is under my promotional umbrella. And it's under the umbrella of the challenger brand, which is AEW. And what we've created in this family of AEW that now includes Ring of Honor, we have great partners that we work with in International Pro Wrestling. New Japan Pro Wrestling's been a great partner to us. Now we're working with some of the great Lucha Libre promotions as well and other companies all over the world. I like doing things with Andy at Rev Pro in England in particular. There's a lot of great companies around the world. But for AEW and I think Ring of Honor, because it falls under my ownership, to be AEW is to be under constant attack. You do a great show and the next day somebody's saying something negative. You do 5 great shows in a row. Somebody says something negative. You break the ticket record for the most tickets ever sold for any wrestling show in the history of the world. And somebody has something bad to say about it. I just, at this point, I don't worry about it. We just need to go out and do great shows week after week like we did. We were the #1 show on cable this week on Wednesday. We beat every single show on TV on Wednesday out of hundreds and hundreds of shows across hundreds of networks. And we continue doing it, and everybody who works here is going to be in good position.
Can you pause one second?
Yeah. No, it's insane.
How are they the #1 show on Wednesday when we just heard the numbers from Thurston Howell III that the Big Bang Theory outdrew them?
Well, he's talking about the 8 to 10 o'clock time slot, I would assume.
Oh, good Lord.
And, Vanderpump is not around.
We were the highest rated show on the entire day of Wednesday, except for the other ones that were higher than we were.
Tony, is Warner Brothers Discovery talking with WWE? Well, we've been crushing it, and, we were number one on Wednesday, and everyone has to do their due diligence. Until he acknowledges that he's bad at this is all going to continue. The downward spiral will continue. Things are going to get worse, not better, until Tony acknowledges that he cannot run a wrestling television show. He gets sit back and watch it.
I think it's challenging because I've never seen anything quite like wrestling when it comes to such a large percentage of the business spending such a large percentage of their time on one platform, which is X, formerly Twitter. It's amazing how many people in the wrestling business are on Twitter all the time. And
you, when your talent gets on the phone with people, it's you they talk about being on Twitter all the time. You're complaining about the reaction that you see when you're on Twitter. The problem isn't the people on Twitter. The problem is you're going there seeking it out. What do you think about him saying owning AEW is being under constant attack?
Again,
is that an inherent thing by being the challenger brand? No matter what, no matter who it was, they'd be under attack right now.
No, because in a lot of cases, the challenger, the plucky underdog, is the babyface. They're not getting constantly attacked. The people are pulling for them until they do stupid shit that nobody can pull for because it's bad, as in not good. And then they get attacked. They were attacking the WWE when all their shit sucked. And they fixed their shit. Much of it doesn't suck anymore. But more of Tony's shit sucks now. So he's getting blistered. That's the way it works.
Remember what we said when we reviewed that audio of Dave Meltzer and Brian Alvarez fighting? What Dave was saying was going to become Tony's argument for things. It's the fans' fault.
Yeah.
It's not that your DVR didn't catch it. It's your fault for not setting it right. That's what's going on here. AEW is doing everything great. AEW had an exceptional year. We're poised for a great 2024. Everything is wonderful. It's those fans and what they think. That's the problem.
And to be honest, I understand it because it's good reason, because it's engagement, because there's such a large percentage of the wrestling fans and the wrestling media and opinion makers and the wrestlers themselves and the companies. So many people are on this one platform. It's pretty unique because in other sports, it's more evenly distributed. Like, to be honest, in the NFL, the biggest platform, and there's all these, there's so much engagement across all these platforms. There's been so much growth in TikTok. We're up 300% year over year NFL and TikTok. And the amount of football being consumed in TikTok is insane. But that also, I don't want to what the NFL does on Instagram and Twitter X, it's incredible. But in wrestling in particular, this one platform, X, it is amazing how much time is spent in the industry on it. And it sometimes becomes, what I've seen is sometimes
in the industry, because Paul Levesque and Bruce Pritchard and Nick Khan are on Twitter during Raw.
Constantly. I've seen it happen many times that Vince McMahon would sit there and he would look at a fucking computer screen and type letters to people on AOL during the Monday Night Wars. No! If he cared what the fuck anybody was saying, he had Finkel or some stooge keep an eye on it because he was running the fucking show.
I want to remind you, as we were playing this audio, the question was asked, geez, how long ago was this now?
I don't know.
8 minutes ago, the question was asked about Warner Brothers Discovery talking with WWE.
Oh, that's right. He's still on the first question.
Yeah, we're now talking about the NFL social media engagement. Let's go back to this.
It's a bit of an echo chamber. And also there's a lot of bad faith. There's a lot of bad faith posting on it. And you can have a great day in the business, like do the number one show, and people try and tell you didn't do something great, or you can break the world record for the most tickets ever sold to any wrestling show ever, and have this massive, huge success on pay-per-view and just hit a home run, and the wrestling's great and everything's great, and still people are trying to tell you there's some problem with it or some detrimental. I have news for you. When the drop count of the show, when people posted the number of people that go through the turnstiles, I've never heard of somebody posting a turnstile count which is not like, there's so many ways to get into a show. And there's so many people I talked to that were.
I want to bring up, no one brought this up.
No, nobody. He's relitigating this. You can tell what every one of his sore spots are and who's chapped his ass based on what he brings up unsolicited.
Yeah, and by the way, it is you in the fact that it's the way you behave. You trigger a lot of fans to want to ridicule you and your product because of the way you behave.
That bought tickets that did not have to go through the turnstiles. But take that aside for a second. The turnstile count, that is so normal. For North American pro sports, even if it was 73 out of 81, that would be over the average of show rate for North American pro sports. So if you take the average, like big,
what about Warner Brothers and WWE, Tony?
Which is like the tickets purchased and then the people who actually go through the gate, people would talk like that was abnormal, or it's like. And
we explained this whole thing on our show, Tony, and took up for you.
There will be people coming for you, gunning for you, because that's what this is. There's a reason that every single person who stepped into my position until now has gone out of business. I'm the only one left. Everybody who has stepped up and put millions of dollars into this and done it week after week, and there's no off season. You do it 52 weeks a year. It's a fight, and that's
wait. Hold on. Who has stepped up and put up millions of dollars to do this, that he's the only one left? They're gone. Impact has put millions of dollars in it, but they're still around.
Well, I think he's referring to the fact that Bill Watts, Jim Crockett, the promoters that Vince defeated.
They didn't put millions of dollars in this. They made millions of dollars out of it. Not one great territory promoter had even as much as $1 million invested or wrapped up in their territory, did they? Vince McMahon bought the WWF from his father, the biggest regional territory in the country, for $1 million. Nobody else even paid that much, because you didn't back then.
He didn't pay that much. He paid it out of the company profits.
But I mean, even the sale price. So what the fuck is he talking about? Yes, some people have lost millions of. We talked about the guy that won the lottery, that started the women's wrestling league, or that Paul Alperstein. He might have lost millions of dollars or whatever. But no, when you're talking about who's still left, he didn't start until everybody else was done, and he's put more money into this business than anybody ever. Even WCW, think about it, did not lose as the entire period from 1988 until 2001. The WCW, Turner Broadcasting, did not lose as much money as Tony Khan has lost to this point in 4 years.
That's what I was going to say.
And that was the biggest ever.
I was going to say Brandon Thurston estimated when we did that segment $34 million as their losses for 2023. That's not counting any of the years leading up to it.
Yeah. And Turner lost $60 million that last year when they had gone crazy because of Bischoff and, spending money like a drunken sailor. But the losses in the early years were like $4 million or $6 million. Still appreciable money, but not exorbitant when you're looking at it from Tony's standpoint, that if he grossed $150 million or whatever it was, $130 million last year, and lost $30 million, what did he lose the first fucking year? So no, nobody has ever put this much money in wrestling ever before by even close. I'm sorry. Go back to Tony the Tiger.
Antonio Kanoki. He's not wearing the red scarf anymore, by the way.
Oh,
I know what it is to be a wrestling fan 52 weeks a year. It's hard. And but it's also the most rewarding thing. That's why you can't get away from it for too long. That's why we always come back to it. We're addicted. And
he looks
it's worth
insane.
the fight. And I love the fight. And I'm never going to stop fighting it. No matter what happens, no matter how things change, it's worth it. It's the fight Jim Crockett fought, and Vern Gagne, and Ted Turner, and so many other people that have tried. And
wait a minute. Ted Turner never tried to be a wrestling promoter. His minions handled that, and they botched it when they had full control over it. But Vern Gagne and Jim Crockett, well, they tried, and and ultimately failed. Vern Gagne was not only at one point the highest paid, most famous wrestler in the country in the early 1950s, but he ran one of the biggest territories in the business for 30 fucking years before it went out of business and made a fortune. And fucking
Jim, and he probably would have put up a better fight if he had a dad who said, here's $200 million. I'll be on my yacht for the next few years.
Oh my God, and he was shorted. He was shorted funds that he could have fought with at the end because of that real estate thing where the government declared eminent domain on some of his property. He lost money. And again, Jim Crockett, yes, he went out of business in the fight with Vince. And Crockett Promotions had been a company for 55 years at that point. And Jim Jr. had been running it for, is it 13 or 14? So, yeah, sooner or later, almost everything is going to go under in some fashion or another, but to compare himself like he's outperforming them? What the fuck?
Well, I don't think it's necessarily outperforming them, more like...
Well, I mean, longer lasting, or I've outlasted everybody. No, he didn't.
I think a lot of it is he wants people to get behind him and not criticize him so much because he's the last person standing with considerable money against Vince. Against WWE.
What he is the guy that's prevented us from ever seeing a real, legitimate alternative to the WWE in our lifetimes. Because now that he's spent all his money and made this splash and put this fucking jack-off product out there, this was our shot. And he's blown it. And it was predicted he was going to blow it from the start by me because he didn't know what he was fucking doing. And he hired a bunch of people that didn't know what they were doing. And he presented a joke product that was indie-minded. And now all of us who wanted to see somebody at least be comparable to the WWE are going to have to wait for reincarnation because it ain't going to happen again. He's muddied the water. Nobody's going to put this much money in wrestling ever again, probably. And nobody's going to come along and be able to do it right because of this fiasco as it immolates and self-implodes. So we lost our chance because Tony got spellbound by the Buckaroos and fucking Twinkle Toes.
You know what? At this point, we could say that even if there was no Buckaroos and Twinkle Toes, even if you had gone there from the beginning, and despite what some people think it wasn't...
I'd be in prison because I'd have killed him.
Yeah, and some people say, oh, Tony just wanted Jim to be a manager against the Bucks. Okay, sure. But if you had gone there from the beginning, there's no way you would have lasted. Like you joke, you would have been in prison. The way it's run, the way it's working with Tony Khan as the head, you would have lost your mind.
I know.
Even if the Bucks and Omega weren't there, anything that's going to be run by Tony Khan is going to be run by Tony Khan this way.
Well, no, then that's why, I instantly dismissed the whole thing when he told me about, and the Elite and the Bucks and blah, blah, blah. But also, as soon as I heard, no, I could not sit in a room with this fucking guy talking about wrestling because it would have driven me out of my mind. I eliminated stress on myself by not taking him seriously and stopped taking his calls because I knew where this was fucking headed.
You would have lost your mind because he would have thought he was on the same level as you in terms of wrestling knowledge and tried to talk to you that way.
No, I think he thought he was ahead because he has an unnamed go-between tell me that, hey, this guy's a billionaire and he wants to start a wrestling company and he really does want to do this and he wants to talk to you. Okay. And then he didn't want to talk to me about what I thought about his project. He wanted to tell me how great all of his ideas were to hear me say, wow. And every time I would not say, wow, and I'd instead say, well, what about this? That's not going to work. And here's why. Oh, no. And
you heard billionaire. You thought it would be a Mark Cuban and you got Roger Rabbit.
Yes. Vince is shot and nobody wants the WWE anymore. And I'm a wrestling expert because I'm going to give them what they want. And there was no doubt. So that's why, again, I chose to alleviate myself of this headache before it became a headache to me. And now he's fucking melting down because he, somewhere down deep, is starting to realize, oh shit, the only one that didn't want a job and the only one that didn't want to talk to me was right.
Well, let's finish this first question. We still haven't finished
the first question. Oh, Jesus Christ.
And I'm doing this for all of you. And I know all of you are here in spirit. So thank you very much.
When we stop it there, he's doing this for Jim Crockett and Vern Gagne. And he knows that they may not be there, but they're there in spirit. Because if Vern Gagne in the afterlife had anything he needed to do on Friday night, he would have hung out with Tony Khan at the media scrum.
But hey, Baba's not there because he wouldn't come because of Antonio Conhoki.
You know what? I like to think in the afterlife, Baba's like, no, can't book.
Yeah, no book good. No good book.
Let's get at least one more question here.
Oh, so another 30 minutes.
Well, no, this looks like it's rather brief. It's about Kenny Omega's health and his current status. Let's go.
I thought it would be about his wrestling talent. That would be brief.
Joey Hayden, Dallas Morning News. Do you have any sort of further update on Kenny Omega, his health, and then what his absence will mean for the short term of AEW?
I know Kenny put out a statement of his own, and I completely support it. And I spoke to him today, and of course, we've been very...
Stop. Does that mean he put out a statement without clearing it with the office?
No, apparently he just announced on Twitter with a picture of him in the hospital, yeah, I'm out indefinitely, and then let Tony read it, I guess, when it came out.
I mean, there would be a protocol, right? If someone was working for you...
No, only in a business.
Okay, well, that answers my question.
Just because he's one of the biggest stars in Tony's company doesn't mean that he would have to clear it with, I don't know, Tony before he tells everybody he's not going to wrestle for the foreseeable future after being advertised for a pay-per-view in 2 weeks. Why would he bother to talk to Tony about that first before sharing it with the fans?
Well, the other way to look at it is maybe it's like the Matt Hardy thing. The best way to get to Tony is to post something on social media. You know he'll see it.
And maybe he might make a miraculous recovery if Tony comes around with another big bonus for his contract.
Let's go back to this audio. Tony's not blinking much. He looks whacked out. Let's go to this.
Very, very, very concerned. And honestly, it's hard to focus on pro wrestling when somebody that you care about, somebody that is so responsible for all of this in so many ways.
Boy, that's certainly true.
Launched AEW, and this would all be possible without Kenny Omega. And certainly he's as influential on the launch of AEW as anybody. And he's one of the greatest pro wrestlers in the world, and he's also a really important figure in this promotion and this business. So I think we're all really concerned, but thankfully he's communicating, and, I think we're hoping for the best. And it's like,
wait a minute. Thankfully he's communicating. What is this has struck him dumb? He's mute now? What the?
You've heard his promos.
Well, okay, you got me there. But seriously, we're thankful he's communicating. In other words, you're thankful that he's telling you how he is now, since he's told the world. He put a picture of himself with a thumbs up in the goddamn hospital. It's not like he's in a fucking medically induced coma. He's communicating.
We're happy he's admitting he's fucked up, is what he's saying.
Yeah. He just didn't want to talk to you. Apparently, Tony is what it was.
Going to turn for the better. The most important thing is that he got help from the doctors at the right time and didn't wait any longer, because he was in a lot of pain, and I don't think we knew how sick he was, or nobody would have wanted him to. I think, to be honest, I'll leave it to him to give updates, because he's already kind of been communicating, and it's his health, and I don't want to speak for him, but we're all praying for Kenny Omega, and thankfully it seems like there's good reasons to be very optimistic, but we were all really worried about him. So it was honestly really hard the last 24 hours focusing on wrestling when somebody who's a part of our wrestling family has something happening that's not wrestling like that. So there's, whenever there's a real life situation like that, it always takes the most precedent. But we're thinking about Kenny Omega and hoping he gets well very soon. And wishing him the best.
Good God, it sounds like he had his uvula amputated or something.
Well, I'll stop the Omega portion here. There's one other little portion I'll play here in a moment just because it follows up on something we've talked about. But, the other thing I'll say is Tony said it earlier that on Twitter specifically, but social media, there's bad faith. Bad faith fans. What's a bad faith fan? Someone who says they don't like Dynamite? Someone who says something that Tony thought was good was bad?
Well, it's easy to pick on Twitter because there are so many either fake people or fake accounts or people with 18 accounts or people that are just going to say, "Oh, fuck you, I hate sunshine," or whatever the case. But in this case, he's attempting to deflect the legitimate criticisms and obvious things that are happening in front of our eyes to equate that all with, "Oh, that's all those fucking assholes on Twitter," because everybody knows there is a bunch of fake assholes on Twitter.
Right, but the real bad faith is coming out there and telling us everything's great when everything's been awful.
I didn't say it wasn't, but I'm saying this is what he's trying to do. He's trying to say, well, anybody that's knocking me is one of these fake assholes on Twitter.
Again, we joked about it. It happened. It's the fans' fault. Everything is great. It's just you guys won't acknowledge how great it is. It's your fault.
He's, in his own way, he's kind of like Shitstain. "Oh, bro, it was the greatest writing and the greatest story. It's just the people, they don't get it."
Well, Jim, we recently talked about Bryan Danielson, his injuries. I think you had an email from a listener, and it caused a big discussion. It spurred the big discussion from you and I. Here's Tony apparently talking about Bryan Danielson's health.
Take care of you.
We saw Bryan Danielson being attended to ringside. Update on Bryan's health. Is he okay? He's got the match tomorrow night in the Continental Classic. Just giving if you've got an update on Bryan.
He's living on the edge. This guy, he's amazing. He's amazing. I've never met anybody like him in my entire life. I think hopefully he'll be good for tomorrow, but he's just having one of the most amazing years. I mean, you think about it. He's had 3 major injuries this year, and he's come back, I think, better every time.
I'm not sure that's a goddamn amazing year.
Whether it was his
is it an amazing year when you've had 3 major injuries in a calendar year?
Well, when you are up for comeback of the year 3 different times in the same category, that's a pretty amazing year. 3 comebacks in 1 year.
You got me there again.
His arm, his shoulder, he's found a way to work through it each and every time and come back better. I think he's the smartest person I know. I think he's the smartest person I've ever known. Not only in wrestling, but in any walk of life. I think he could have really done just about anything he set his mind to, and he's become, in my opinion, the greatest wrestler of all time. And
I got to stop this right now. Not only is Bryan Danielson the greatest wrestler of all time, Tony's almost getting emotional here. He's the smartest person he's ever met in his entire life. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime we get to go out there and watch him do it, it's an honor and a privilege. And tonight, that's how I felt. And I hope and pray that he'll be okay to wrestle tomorrow on TNT on AEW Collision. Right now, I expect it. But on the other hand, I can't take it for granted because he got the hell beaten out of him tonight. And, we'll hope for the best. But I think he'll be okay. I'm optimistic for Collision.
It's just a flesh wound.
This great venue.
You know how smart Bryan Danielson is? He realized after the first one, you know what? I'm going to keep telling this guy I'm fucking hurt. And he's going to be so impressed with me just coming to work every week. "Hey, Tony, this week, my foot, my ankle, my knee, my shoulder." Well, what do you think? Is Bryan Danielson the smartest person you've ever met? You've been around him.
I've never quizzed him. I didn't have the Scholastic Aptitude Test or the standardized IQ test. I've heard Mensa is highly overrated. They'll just take anybody. But no, I have a hard time believing that the guy who is limped back like the Black Knight, carrying his arm stuck under his fucking armpit and hopping on one leg and fucking etc., is the smartest human being that this guy has ever met. But then again, maybe Tony don't get out much.
Well, I guess we could understand a little more clearly, or with some clarity, why Tony has been putting over Danielson so hard and saying that if anything happens to him, he told his dad put Bryan Danielson in charge, and Danielson recommended Jimmy Jacobs, who's been Tony Khan's shadow for the last few months, and everything's going great. I mean, luckily it's all worked out well, and the product's never been hotter. They're set up for a great year. because they can't go too much further down, I guess.
They're set up for what?
A great year. Oh, God damn it. Well, that's the end of the media Scrum audio. Any closing comments?
It's great.